April 3rd, 1996, an Air Force jet carrying Secretary of Commerce Ron Brown and 34 others crashed while landing near Croatia's Dubrovnik airport. At the time of Ron Brown's death, he was under criminal investigation by an independent counsel. That investigation quickly ended with Brown's death, though Brown's son, Michael, and Brown's partner later pleaded guilty to charges related to Brown's alleged wrongdoing. Then in late 1997, stunning revelations were made in the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. It was a series of investigative reports by reporter Christopher Ruddy. The Tribune-Review reported that 3 military pathologists believed there was significant evidence that Brown may have suffered a gunshot wound to his head, and that the cause of death as an accident could not be supported unless there was an autopsy. No autopsy was ever conducted on Brown. And when Brown's body was examined at Dover Air Force Base, officials found what appeared to be a perfectly round hole, consistent with a .45 caliber gunshot wound. And X-rays also indicated possible bullet fragments in Brown's head. These and other disclosures have become a focus of interest with Judicial Watch, a public interest law firm headed by Larry Klayman. And joining us today to discuss the cover-up of Ron Brown's death is Judicial Watch Chairman Larry Klayman and Newsmax.com editor Christopher Ruddy. Larry, let's start with you. You and your organization first uncovered the facts relating to the scandal that is known as Chinagate and Ron Brown at Commerce. How was Brown involved in all of these stories?
Brown was the mastermind, the implementer of the scheme to sell off seats on trade missions, to sell high technology to the Chinese and others. This was devised by Hillary Clinton. That business partner you talked about, Nolanda Hill, has testified to this. No one refuted it. The court dared the White House to come in with other evidence. It hasn't occurred. So consequently, when Ron Brown's plane goes down during the week that he had been scheduled to testify to Judicial Watch, but got a postponement to go to Bosnia instead, it obviously raises a lot of questions.
Larry, you've spoken with Brown's business partner, as you say, Nolanda Hill. Hill told you what had happened to Brown in the days just before his death. As the independent counsel, Daniel Pearson, was closing in on Brown, Brown went to see Bill Clinton.
That's right. What happened was this. This independent counsel started before this plane crash occurred. This counsel was a Democrat out of Miami. Brown went to Clinton, according to Nolanda Hill, and said to Clinton, unless you get this Democrat independent counsel off my back, I may have to turn state's evidence. I may have to cooperate. And Clinton's response was barefoot, according to Nolanda Hill, up on a footstool, which is his way of walking around the White House. Arms crossed. That's nice. Almost like an organized crime figure. That's nice. The icy chill in the room was so great that Nolanda Hill has told us that Ron Brown just walked out at that point. And it was within the next 2 weeks that he was sent to Bosnia. He did not know that he was scheduled to go there.
Never heard it. As a reporter, I've never heard it before. This plane crash came at a very convenient time. As a former federal prosecutor, Larry, should this have been dismissed so easily as just another accident?
It can't be dismissed as an accident. It can't be dismissed because it's irrefutable. As we represent Kathleen Janofsky and Steve Cogswell, 2 people in the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology that actually played a role in investigating the death, it cannot be disputed that what you have in Ron Brown's head is a bullet hole.
Chris Ruddy, you broke this story in that great newspaper, the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. And your articles continue on Newsmax.com. I want you to explain to us now how Brown could have been shot considering the plane had crashed.
George, I think everything people have heard about this case is probably false or misleading. certainly that the press and the government has told. We know that the Air Force report on the crash states categorically that the weather was not bad, that the weather did not contribute to the crash. You ask your average American, they thought that it was the worst weather ever in Croatia that day. Second, the Air Force, for the first time in their history of airplane investigations on friendly territory, decided they were immediately going to declare this an accident without a full investigation. And then the third thing, George, I think is the most disturbing. When the military officials at Dover Air Force Base examined Brown's body, they found what appeared to be a gunshot wound. Now, we don't know how that gunshot wound was made, but you do an autopsy, you do an investigation, and instead, what they did was a cover-up of the facts of this case.
Chris, Larry, it seems shocking to me that they found this evidence. Did anybody call the FBI? Did anyone contact the Brown family? Why wasn't there an autopsy? Why didn't they conduct one?
No, as a matter of fact, it was worse than that. And, of course, we get this story about what happened with Clinton in the Oval Office from Nolanda Hill. And it's interesting enough that Nolanda Hill is the only one who winds up getting indicted and having to do hard time. Michael Brown gets off scot-free. Other people don't go to jail. Nolanda Hill, the person that comes forward and tells the story about Brown's encounter with the president, goes to jail.
And let's underscore, George, this was a Commerce Secretary, a member of the
Yes.
President's cabinet.
Yes.
There was significant evidence of homicide. All of the pathologists agreed at Dover Air Force Base there was apparent gunshot wound that needed an autopsy. No autopsy was conducted. It is standard procedure that an autopsy be conducted.
Chris, Newsmax.com and you have released a video, The Death of Ron Brown. And for the first time, you're releasing the secret government photos, the actual photos of the Brown crash, Brown's body, some other photos. We're showing some of these photos, the ones we can on national TV.
Yeah, the video, George, and we're showing now some